Thank you. Thank you for coming. I'll talk about agile development in Saxo Bank and how we do. You have heard a lot of agile development today, and I'll talk about how we do. Just some facts about me. I have a master's degree in science, electronics, computer engineering, and I have some certifications also in the testing field and project development, and also in the dealing certificate. I have been working mainly in hardware software production industry, but also lately, the last 4 years, in the banking industry. My current role here is front office test lead. That means I'm responsible for release and test environments, and also for the development processes. You have some contact information for me here. My presentation would focus on some introduction to Saxo Bank and software in general, and then agility challenges that we are facing and finding the right quality. And what have we done to be more agile? And it's about the process and the tools and the people. What you could bring from here. It could be focus areas in the test process for achieving right level of quality, and also what skills do you need to manage testing in a hyper-agile organization. This is just a picture from Saxo Bank. It's the front office headquarters where the traders are sitting with all the screens. It was established in 92. We have more than 1,300 employees, and it's very much the development department where we have 700. We have offices in 25 countries. What we provide is trading different instruments, and we have more than 25,000 financial instruments that you can trade from, even from your home. We have a big daily turnover, and we have development in both Denmark and India. So we have a very huge software platform. That means that our software is split into more than 350 components or services running all together and interacting. So it's a huge code base. So what is the conditions for development? Well, you need to be productive because the business would like to develop all the time. You have a large project portfolio, and then there's a demand all the time for developing the bank. You also need to be good. That means you need ongoing performance and technical improvements, and of course you would like a minimum number of bugs in life. So this is more running the bank. And then of course also you need to be economical, so there's a cost awareness also, and for all these reasons, we have also offshore development and testing, because it's also in Denmark it's very difficult to get people and test people. So, but we want to be more agile. So what is that? Well, as the boss says here, we're going to try something called Agile Programming, and he says that means no more planning and no more documentation. Just start writing code and complaining. Well, and the employee says, yeah, I'm glad that has a name. Yeah, thank you, that was your training. Well, in Saxo Bank we have a development module that we are always trying to improve. So we have the different projects delivering, and they have their test environments, and they're delivering into a platform, what we call, and there we have a release test environment. And there's a quality gate here. Oh, sorry. There's a quality gate here when you merge to main, and you get the defects back. And then, before we go into production, there's a quality gate here too. And of course, there could be incidents that goes back. But we also have, besides the release test environment, we have something called simulation, where we put stuff into just before production. And the simulation environment is something that you could also try out as a customer, because it's like a virtual production environment where you can just have an account and start trading without spending any money. So this is the last minute where we would find bugs. So the trend in Saxo Bank to becoming even more agile is that we have reduced the delivery cycle over time. So the idea is that less changes per cycle, and this also has the benefit that we are not forced to deliver something because business would like to have something out tomorrow. We can say, well, we have this cycle, you need to stick with that, follow the process. And that's easier when you have a small cycle. We can also see that development has been, over the years, has been divided into sections which is more business aligned. So we are more focusing on the customer. For the quality assurance and test, there's some challenges, of course. We have this huge base of code. We have these many components, and the test basis, the documentation is, when we are agile, it is limited. And there's also a limited time for writing the test cases, and even for the testing also. And for test reporting, we need to make a report, but it needs to also be done fast. And what about the test coverage? What is it that we really would like to test? I have a graph here where just to indicate what this right quality means to us. So if you have out here, you have the number of changes going into business, and here you have the live incidents. What is rolled back? That is actually the quality of what you're delivering. So it could be that you have a huge amount of changes going out, but you also have a huge amount of live incidents, and which means really you have a low quality. But in the other end, you could have very less changes going out, but only a few live incidents. You would have a high quality, but you would deliver less. So it is all about finding the right level. And what is really right to us is that, well, the business should be happy. You should have the competitive products and earnings, but less problems in life, where you get losses maybe. But you also need to have customers. They also like more products because it gives them opportunities, and they of course also would like less box found. So what have we done to become even more agile? I'll just run I have three key points that I will cover: the processes, the tools, and the people. So for the process, I have some key points here that we are following. We have a very time-boxed development and time-boxed testing, and there's backlogs for every area. We have this agile incremental approach, so releasing small steps, and what we always try to do is to be backward compatible. So that means that we have this huge number of components we are delivering all the time, but it could be that only some components would go out and some would not go out because that's a quality issues. So that means that everything should be compatible, and we are very focused on that. So it's possible to roll only some part back. We are spending more time on the high-risk changes, both when we do functional testing and regression testing. So it's really risk-based testing. And what we also have focused on is a very flexible development and test process. That means that we have these quality gates, verification points, but it can be really decided on a low level. So it does mean that you have the same quality for all the changes, but it can be different. And we have also very good cross-functional teams. That means that there's a lot of collaboration between the developers and the testers. And that means also that there's some shared responsibilities. It could be that some of the developers are actually doing the testing and not only the testers. So it's more one team. This is just an example of how we are doing our release test cycle. It's very time-boxed, 2 weeks. So on Monday, we do a baseline of our release test environment, and on the Tuesday we do deployments of database changes and do a verification of that, and then on the Wednesday we put all these services into the test environment, and then we have 6 days for testing, and then we have a go-no-go meeting where we decide all together, the testers, developers, business people, do we agree that this is going out or not? Do we have any doubts? And then on the Friday, we're planning the next. And then on the Saturday, everything goes into live. And then on a Sunday, we take the backup on live, and that is actually going in as the data for the baselining in the next sprint. We have also a very agile way of the documentation. We're building up as a tree, so we have this release going out in that Saturday. It's built like a tree structure. We have the release here, and then we have the changes coming from on the different components. This is component A and 1 and 2 and so on. All these hundreds of components. And then we have for each component, you could have deliveries from every project. And below that, you have the user stories and bug fixes. So in that way, you have everything in this structure. And for the state transitions, this is also quite simple. So we only have, for development, we have 4 steps. Not done, active, result, and closed. And this is very aligned with our Kanban, our electronic Kanban. And for the testing, we have independent test stages because we want to test on different levels. So it could be on a development phase, we need to test on integration phase or system integration or release testing. So that means that we have separated these states from the main states. And we have a way of directly auto-generating a test report from all these data that is put into these tasks. We are also very focused on that the tooling should be effective. So we are based on Microsoft Team Foundation Server and Visual Studio, and along with Microsoft's Test Manager. So that means that we have the code, you have the box, you have the tasks, the user stories, features, everything in the same tool, and also the test cases or the scripting. And then we use Test Manager for our test execution planning and getting the test results and test reports out of the system directly. And for the test environments, as I talked about, we have several, and we are getting a backup from live, where we actually take all data from live. That means all the customers, all the trades, everything. And but it's scrambled, so we cannot see the real customer names or anything. But it's as big as in live. So to to be able to simulate also performance testing. And we do this baseline every 2 weeks, and there's an intensive scripting for adapting the data into the test environments, because as you saw, it was only done on the Monday. And also the deployment is very effective, so you can just click a button and then the software is deployed into the test environment. What about the people then? Well, this agility has, of course, a large impact also on quality assurance thinking. So it means that you need to adapt very much to the situation and plan very much based on a risk thinking, as all other speakers have talked about today. You cannot test everything. So you need to find the right test depth and use your time very optimum, because you only have a few days for the testing. That also means that you need to share the results very early. It could be that you are doing some testing and you're already finding some problems, and it's very important that you very early start to report this. You don't wait until you have done everything, because it's very important that your feedback very early. And you need the right level of documentation and reporting, so you get the message out, but don't overdo anything. There's no time for it. It's more important that you do your testing, get the result out, and maybe go to the guy directly and explain what is the matter. So that means that we have a new tester role. Of course, these certifications is very helpful to you as a basis, but it's not really sufficient in the field, because there's so many other things that you need to be able to do. Because as I see, the tester is very in a situation where he needs to handle many different stakeholders. You need to talk with the developers, you need to talk with project managers, delivery managers, business owners, the business support. You're all communicating with those people. You are like a glue between the teams, I believe. But you also need to be technical, well-founded in multiple areas. There's less time for studying and understanding, so you need to react fast. And of course, being this risk-focused means that, we would like you to find the serious bugs from the beginning. So very proactive, and don't be afraid of asking questions. You might have a feeling that the developer would think that you are asking silly questions, but in the end, maybe it was the right questions that you asked. Also, we like to make plans, but we need to expect them to change, and then you need to adapt to the new situations and see what is the opportunities right now. Spending more time on exploratory testing, as you also heard earlier today, instead of just running the same tests cases all the time, and the early and precise test reporting. Only a few lines in the beginning of a bug report should be sufficient for the developer to really understand what it's all about. So, what have we seen of effects of this approach then in Cyclebank? Well, we have seen that actually we are delivering more into live than we used to do, and we are also getting less severity bugs in live, which means rollbacks. Of course, there are bugs still, but it's not the high severity bugs. But it has, of course, a big effect on the process. We have actually, by having this tree structure, we are more transparent, and it's all traceable what we do, and very effective, and the bug reporting is really great. Instead of writing Word documents with a lot of data, just you can say, if you're writing a Word document, then one hour later maybe it's not valid anymore, because then the situation is changing. But if you can take it out directly from the system, then it helps. The flexible development model makes it easy to adapt to new situations, and then because we have this Danish-Indian collaboration, we also can benefit from that, because we could do a late build in Denmark, and then in the morning in India they could start testing it, and then we can have a result back when we come the next day. And the effect on the testing is actually that we have seen that this exploratory testing generates more bugs than running the test cases that was prepared in advance. So what is the lessons that we have learned in Saxo Bank? Well, the key focus areas that is needed on the test process for achieving this right quality in Saxo Bank has been that it's very important that you have a very simple and clear, flexible process where responsibility and expectations are very clear to everybody. It also means that the teamwork is very important. We have daily scrums with both testers and development, and it's also important that you avoid being too dependent on other teams' priorities. That means that it's good to have as much knowledge within the team, so you can decide very quickly. Instead of, if you need to ask another team for help, then you never know when you will get some results back. The communication part is very important. It could be that you're wasting time and bugs are overseen because the communication is not clear and effective. And on the documentation side, well, you need to find this right level of detail so everybody can have the information, but don't overdo it. Be focused on the key points and make it very easy for the reader, because the reader might not have time for reading, so it should be very precise. And also on the tooling, as you saw, it's very important to have easy planning, test execution, and reporting. And we see it very important that we have it all in one tool. And this very easy setup of the test environment has helped a lot on the agility also. Then what about the skills to manage testing? Well, it's very, very important to have these communication skills. So, because you have these different stakeholders that you need to talk to every day. And you need to know everything, really, but of course you cannot. So you need to have a good business and technical knowledge also as a tester. But which is more important, maybe you need really to know the go-to guys, so you can have this quickly knowledge. Of course, we also need to be great team players. That means that don't hide any knowledge by yourself. Share your knowledge and get knowledge back from the other team members. That's very important. And an open mindset, yeah. Be ready to change your plans quickly. You cannot just sit in a corner and, well, I'm going to do this for the next week. That's a no-go. Of course, we have a tester's mindset, so it's really important that you explore and ask questions all the time. don't feel stupid. And yeah, responsible mindset. As I said, the tester is really in the middle of everything. So it's very important that the tester is the guy that also follow up on stuff, because maybe it will fall in between teams if there's nobody following up. So that's very important, and it's, as I can see it in Saxobank, it's more or less the testers doing that. I'll talk just also about what we have seen of cultural differences when we are working together with India. Of course, there's a different thinking when you are working with offshore teams, and it's both ways, of course. That the communication path, you could either be thinking it's more hierarchical, you all speak to your manager, you're not speaking to the other teams directly. It could also be that the decisions are very centralized, controlled, or decentralized, and also on the planning you could differ. It could be some people would like it very detailed, so they are absolutely sure they're doing the right thing, or it could be less detailed. Also on the communication form, we have seen that it is very different. In Denmark, maybe we are more direct in our speaking to people, and in India, as we've seen, they are more indirect. They're maybe not saying exactly what they mean, but so you need to learn that. And in writing, it's the same maybe that as the direct versus the indirect, but in writing actually I've seen it's opposite. So in Denmark, when you're trying to send a message, maybe it's a negative message, but then you start writing, well, you're doing fine, and then, but in the end it says, but maybe you could improve on this. But in India, it's the opposite way. They start reading, and if they write the first lines and it says, well, you're doing fine, then they don't read the rest because, everything is, I'm happy. My boss is happy. So that's really, could be some misunderstandings here. Also, of course, on the languages, that there could be some words that we don't understand, because in India they have some special English words that we would normally not use in Denmark. And it could also be that there are different job goals. Would you like to grow to become a manager, or would you just like to be a technical expert? So there's different goals. So how have we tried to overcome this? Well, it's really important that you discuss these cultural differences for better understanding and learning, and really engage with the team members also after work to really know them. And it's also very important to travel both ways. So we have traveled much to India, and they have traveled much to Denmark. And on the unclear goals and expectations, we have seen that it's important that you speak to them maybe on the phone or on video, but maybe then also write in a mail, because it's really important that they really understand your message. And we have also these boxes on both sides for translating or better explaining. And maybe people would not ask me directly, I don't understand what you're saying, but he or she would ask a team member in India maybe. Be very concrete on goals and expectations, of course. And these regular status meetings is very important. Also to understand what went well, what can we improve, get the feedback from the team members. And this having a feeling of being far away, I'm feeling the same if I go to India and trying to talk with the Danish people, and it's vice versa. that we have these electronics board for status sharing that we can see from both sides. And we have video conference systems that we use every day, so that's really a must. So the next plan for Saxo Bank, where we're going, well, we are trying to become even more agile, continuous delivery, even more effective processes. We would like to improve even more on that, and even more automation, of course. And these generated reports is really a big thing also. So conclusion, well, important focus area as we have seen in our Agile team is that you should be really clear on communication. That's very important. You should have very effective processes and very effective tools also. And this team player mindset is very important. And the risk mindset, yeah, you should be risk focused all the time. So that's the end of my presentation. So thank you for listening. Any questions?
Hi. Could you tell me, most of your testing staff are from India, am I right?
It's 50-50, I think. Yeah. We have testers in Denmark, we have testers in India. But I can see the trend is that it's becoming more in India.
Okay, and second question. How can they be this glue for all team when they are in different time zones? It's difficult, I suppose.
Yeah, but it's very important that you document. Of course they can. There's of course a tendency that the Indian testers are more glued with the developers and the business people in India, and the Danish testers are more glued maybe with the developers in Denmark. But what we try to do is that we, on these test reports, user stories, whatever, that we try to document everything into a Team Foundation server. Also, all communication. It's very important that you don't use mail for communicating, because a mail will only be seen by that tester and maybe that developer. So we are very much focused on that we're putting everything into the user stories and the bug reports, so everybody can see. So if some Indian people come in early, they discuss something, we cannot see unless it's in TFS. So, but in that way we can have the same information in Denmark. So share the knowledge, it's very important.
What do you think, how much waste you are creating between the communications between India and Denmark?
It's really hard to measure, because we're really not measuring it, but we can see that there are some misunderstandings, and sometimes there's some things developed that was not really the right thing. So maybe he understood maybe only 70% of what was the goal. So that's really important. It's communication is so important.
You mentioned fixed time boxes within Spring. Do you plan time for live issues fixing, or it's just affecting somehow somewhere?
It is. There's it's the same people fixing the live incidents as the people development. So there's a percentage how much they should use on one thing and the other thing. But of course, it can be very dynamic. But of course, the incidents that coming from live has a severity ranking. So of course, there's priority 1, then everybody jump, and priority 2, it should be fixed the same day, and then we have priority 3 and 4, which we fixed later on. But that's also why we're having these Kanban boards, because these incidents come in parallel with the changes from business, the demands.
I mean, it's difficult to maintain these plans when new organizations came.
Yeah, it is. But it is time box. So that means also that we cannot say to business, you will get this out that week, maybe. But we will try to do it out. But maybe we didn't reach it in this time box, then it will come out in the next one.
You mentioned that all the applications are backwards compatible. How can you test that, or how can you be sure they are?
Of course, we cannot be sure, but what we do is that for instance, when you saw we had these DB deployments going into the test environment, and there we do some verifications that everything still works. And so that means that the DB changes are already backward compatible with the services coming in later. So it could be that, so we assure that the database changes will work with the previous version of the service. So that's one way of doing it.
But if you have several teams producing applications, then you should have every team testing every team's backwards compatibility, right?
In theory, yes. But of course, we cannot do that.
That's why I'm asking, what is a practical thing that you do?
Well, it's of course up to the developer to ensure that things are backward compatible. And also there's a review process also for every delivery going in from every project. There's a main responsible developer that sits and do a review of every change before it's merged into main. So there are several gates for checking up if this is really feasible or not.
Hello, I'm working in the same area in Russia with Russian banks, and you said that you're always sharing the actual information in your team. There, from my experience, there have to be actualized business description of the business processes on which we can foundate a test model with the test cases. How do you actualize it, and if you're just sharing the information like in conversations? Are there some system which are automatically updating it, I don't know, by analyzing code or something like that?
What I mean by sharing information is that it's very important within your team that you are really educating each other team members.
Yes, but we're hardly predicating on the people. If someone is ill, everyone can't know anything about the system. About all business processes. It's impossible.
Yeah.
So if one man, I don't know, was fired or ill, or I don't know, got a rest for a few weeks, the work is stopping. It's a quite big problem.
Yeah, that's really why it is so important that you share your knowledge, because otherwise you're very much dependent on one person, and if he's on holiday or ill, anything, and then things are stopped, this is not doable when you're trying to be agile. It's really the process should go on even though that this man is out or is ill. Or,
So you have some confidence system with technical descriptions of business processes, or some quality center, or
well, we have our systems, of course, where we document our stuff and the code and everything, and but we tend to keep it as low on a low level as much. So it should be so that another tester or developer could very easily go in and continue on that work.
and how often do you actualize it?
How we do it in practice?
Okay. Another question about system of continuous integration. Do you have a big one system of continuous integration for all system of banks, or you have a single one for each of it?
No, it's very divided. So it's not everything that fits into one thing that fits into everything. So it's very much improved on different areas how we do.
And how do you It's a question about testing, integration testing with all systems. How do you install it on the test area?
How do I?
Installing it on the test area. There is no automation scripts. You're making it by your hands for a week. Because from my experience, I know that installation of big bank systems in one integration area, it's a very hard task. So, and most of all, it makes near a week or 2 weeks, and it's quite a big estimate.
Yeah, but that's really what we have tried to narrow down, so we are able to do this in a few days.
So you're on your way to automate it.
This is the installation that's completely automated. It's scripted, so it's like clicking on a button, then all the services are installed on the different servers, and you can choose which test environment it needs to go into. Then it's already defined which server in that test environment it's needed to be installed on. That's already prepared and scripted. So it's very important.
What are the reasons in your case for critical bugs leaking to production? And what do you do to remove such reasons?
I can take a microphone.
So how we... Okay, yeah. So your question was about the critical bugs.
What are the reasons for critical bugs leaking to production?
Why
does it happen?
The critical bugs are the reason for leaking.
Yeah.
Well, that could of course be that we haven't maybe understood what was really the need for testing. It could be that we are missing some information, that there's a change that really would affect a lot in the business area. Maybe there's a miscommunication. So that could be that we are not doing enough testing in that area, or the developer maybe misunderstood from business what was really the goal for this change. So it's again very much about communication between the business, the developer, the tester, all the time. But of course, could also slip out if you cannot of course test everything. But that's why it's so important that you test what is most critical for business. You start testing that, and then you can test the other stuff that is less risk for business.
And such bugs are usually reported by customers?
Yeah, could be, because customers are really good testers. So, yeah. So, but then, of course, there's also, if something goes out into live and then found by a customer, there's always the possibility that we can roll back. Because if we can say, this is a huge impact on many customers, and the first customer here, he found it, but maybe tomorrow there'll be 100 customers, then we can just roll it back because we are backward compatible. Yeah. So it's all about risk. Thank you very much.